Public Art Program Director here at the Maryland State Arts Council, and I am joined by my coworker, Nora Howe. Nora, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here.
So we are the two primary contacts for the Public Art Program and the Public Artist roster. You all can feel free to reach out to us at any point after today and whenever you need. Just going to go over some opening slides in case you're unfamiliar with our Google Meet platform. The microphone button is your mute and unmute, and you can turn your camera on or off with the camera icon. Feel free to raise your hand, but again, as I said, we're going to go through the majority of this content at a pretty good pace, and then we'll have time for questions all at the end. So you can feel free to put questions in the chat as we're going, and we will respond to them as we come back through. The chat looks like this. It's a little like word bubble icon that you can just load up with any notes about where you're calling in from or questions you'd like us to answer. I'm going to begin this meeting with our land acknowledgement statement, and I will read it aloud for accessibility purposes. You can find out more about the Maryland State Arts Council's Land Acknowledgement Project through our website. We acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Accohonic Indian tribe, the Assateague Peoples tribe, the Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, the Choptico Band of Indians, the Lenape tribe, the Nanticoke tribe, the Nassau-Wabash Band of Indians, the Piscataway Conoy tribe, the Piscataway Indian Nation, the Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Youghiogheny River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora, and we acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that have nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources, and we acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they can continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them can be fully restored. Our equity and justice statement is that the arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council is committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organization and across the communities of our state. Maryland State Arts Council and its grantees are committed to embracing equity, non-discrimination, regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, class, language, and/or ability. And our vision is that Maryland State Arts Council plays an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And our mission is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. Now, our most recent strategic plan, created in 2024, includes these general goals that I will read the bold portions of: access, awareness, connection, equity, and leadership. We like to begin every meeting with our creative meeting actions, and for the sake of time, I'm going to just read these aloud. Celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, honor all perspectives and build on shared ideas, and balance speaking with listening. Throughout the year, Maryland State Arts Council provides professional development opportunities available to Maryland State residents. If you're a resident in Maryland, feel free to get in touch with us about engaging in any of these, or you can find them on the Eventbrite page where you probably registered for this meeting. And an additional way to get involved is that we hire panelists and editors throughout the year to help improve our programs. Panelists and editors are paid positions, and when those are available, we advertise them on the Ways to Get Involved page. If you're a Maryland resident, feel free to check that out as well. Okay, so on to today's agenda. Thanks for sitting through all that. We really appreciate you all being here. It's wonderful to see another 30-something people join us again from across the country. It's really our pleasure to talk with you all today. So we're going to go through a lot of info and then open it up for questions so we get to hear from you. What are we going to go over? Today, we're going to talk about the state of Maryland's public art program and why we use a public art roster. We're going to talk about a couple of examples from our recent acquisitions to our collection and the use of our roster, who should apply, how to prepare your application, and a couple of additional resources that NORA can offer. And then it will be time for questions. So, the state of Maryland's public art program. We offer, this is kind of specifically for people in Maryland to talk about the difference between these two programs, but we offer kind of two columns of support for public art. What we will not go into deep detail about today is our grant program. So Maryland is really well funded. We're very grateful for the amount of support we get from our state for the arts, and we offer grants through many different disciplines. But in public art, we support the creation of new work and conservation of existing works through a grant program we call Public Art Across Maryland. But today, we're going to talk about the other column of our work, the Maryland Public Art Initiative. The Maryland Public Art Initiative acts as our state's Percent for Art program. We acquire new works for state-operated buildings and facility that meet a certain criteria. We report to the Maryland Public Art Commission, a governor-appointed body of 11 commissioners that oversee this program. And when we commission these works, they all become part of Maryland's public art collection. This program is open to artists and artist-led teams from across the country. It's one of our only programs that is offering opportunity to people outside of our state. Just if this is a new term for you, Percent for Art usually relates to a law that says a certain percentage of a construction project's budget goes to create public art for that project. In our case, it's relatively small. It's 0.5% of eligible construction costs are set aside for that work. Any projects that are included in this have to be over 1,500 square feet of occupiable space. So that doesn't include like garages or utility buildings. And it has to be funded at least 50% by state capital funding. What this means is a lot of our projects end up on spaces, probably the majority of our spaces are college campuses where you're having like large multi-department facilities built, sometimes large state-operated courthouses like district courts, and occasionally laboratories or other facilities, but a lot of them relate to education. The Maryland Public Art Commission, as I mentioned, is 11 members. 7 of the members are public members that are appointed by the governor across a staggered 3-year term. They've been around since 2005, and so we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year and nearing probably 20 installed work. So a lot of times in the past, we would open these meetings with a selection of maybe the 5 or 6 works we'd completed to date. And I am proud to say that just in the last year or 18 months, we've completed another 7 projects. So I'm not going to go through them all individually, but you can see here that they represent a real range of work from large outdoor sculpture, hanging installations on the interior of facilities, mosaics, paintings, cast bronzes, stainless steels from a diversity of artists from across the country. We're really proud of the scale and speed at which this collection is growing and the diversity of people and viewpoints it represents. And on top of that, we have 17 active projects across our state right now that represent 5.5 million. Those are an investment in the arts. Those are at varying states of completion. Some of these are just starting the artist selection process. Some of them are well into the selection process and the works are about to be installed. So these will be rolling out over the next 18 months or so into various phases. But they've all used the last iteration of the public artist roster. We are now at the timeline of that roster and about to reopen it. So what is a public artist roster? So back in 2023, the Maryland Public Art Commission approved the use of a roster as a method for selection. So you may be familiar with a call for artists, where we might put out a request for qualifications, or even sometimes would ask an artist to make a proposal for a work. And we were doing that for a while for every individual project, and we would regularly receive 200 to 400 applications per project. So everybody was lumped into one big pool of artists. And then in some cases, even if you were shortlisted from this large 400-person pool, maybe you'd get down to the top 10 or 12, you would still be asked to make a proposal on top of that. And the process was very drawn out. It was slowing us down in our ability to accomplish projects. And we also noted that for the artist side, you were having to apply to every single opportunity, not really knowing what you stacked up against or who might be the most competitive for that project. So we approved this method of a artist roster, not making it up from scratch. This idea has been around for a long time, and we actually modeled ours a lot on what other states we respected their work, what they were doing, and how they were operating. So our roster is based largely on the state of Washington, as well as input from a number of other jurisdictions. But in this case, artists from a variety of backgrounds apply to the roster a single time, and this roster will be in place for 3 fiscal years, from 2026, 2027, and 2028. You apply one time. If you're accepted onto the roster, you are reviewed by independent panelists to be accepted on based on eligibility, not based on the criteria of a specific project. From there, our staff, Nora and I, will look at the parameters of a particular project, and then we will pull from this list of artists on the roster 60 to 100 applications that we think are going to be a big, diverse range of different ways of achieving the goals of that project. So you don't necessarily have to have as much experience or background of having produced public art in the past, because we can maybe look at some projects as having more opportunity for artists with varied backgrounds. Or in other cases, you don't have to apply to every project hoping you'll get it. We can say, this person has, a track record of doing work that's in this very niche way of being installed that this project requires. Let's try to advance people with that experience. And so we're using our expertise and knowledge of what you provide to push you forward for a project. And then for each project, 4 to 6 semifinalists are selected and invited to interview with the specific requirements of that project. The deadline or the timeline so far. So I said we introduced this back in 2023. I'm sorry, I meant 2022. It was in place for 2 years, from 23 to 25. We're now at the end of that timeline. We're reopening this new roster for applications. The deadline to apply is June 30th. In August, our panelists will review your applications. And in September, we will announce the new public artist roster. For context, the last application round, we had about 500 applications and about 430 got accepted on. So it's a pretty high ratio of acceptance. Artists who are applying to the roster do not have to have a lot of experience in producing public art, but you have to be open to these 3 criteria that you'll be reviewed on for your application. Artwork is expected to be site responsive. The artwork is expected to be architecturally integrated, and artists are expected to do some kind of community engagement with a public audience or the stakeholders of that facility. And this is going to be the primary method that we select artists for projects ranging from $50,000 to $1,500,000 budgets. Just to reiterate again, the benefits of this roster process: one-time application, you only apply once over the 3 years. There's a smaller pool of competition, and we can ensure that it's not always the same applicants going to the top of each pool. We can kind of cater the groups of applications reviewed for each project. Us as administrators, we are empowered to advocate for you and your practice based on the parameters of a specific project. And you can use the roster as a point of pride. You can list it in your resume as being included on there, and you can almost use it as a mini website to feature your work. We also make that roster available to anybody nationally who wants to look at it. And specifically, it's helpful to people applying for those grants within our state. If an organization is looking for someone to do a specific type of work, ranging from any material, sculpture to mural, they can look there and say, who's on that, who's already been approved and vetted by our State Arts Council. This is what that looks like. So once you're featured on the roster, it becomes this searchable public resource. Your work shows up as thumbnails. If you click on it, it opens to a larger screen that has all of your works and the metadata that you include. We're going to come back to this, but just noting here how important it is to fill out metadata or the descriptions around each of your projects. It's not just helpful to us, it's helpful for anyone looking at that roster. And when someone asks us for a recommendation, we can't usually say, oh, like we'll pick from this list here. Oh, you know, Bridget Semino does great murals. As true as that might be, well, we can't recommend one vendor over another. But what we can say is, why don't you go to the artist roster? Here's a group of people who've done this work in the past, and you can see their work for yourselves. So being on here helps us promote you. So we thought we'd just jump ahead of it with some of the common questions that might be coming up for some of you. We're going to kind of do a little role play to ask each other about this.
Ryan, why is the Maryland Public Art roster open to artists outside of Maryland?
That's a great question, Nora. So we already talked about how the grants program is really limited to artists within Maryland, but our roster is open to artists from across the country because we value that perspective and the professional approach from artists all over the country. We want Maryland-based artists to be able to compete everywhere as well. And so we welcome artists from across the country so that other jurisdictions will welcome artists from our state. It's part of interstate commerce law to keep that openness on bond-funded projects, but it's also just good practice for diversity. We don't like to limit the books in our libraries to authors only from Maryland. We value that amongst many other voices, and so the same goes for our art collection. Let me ask you, if someone was included on the last roster, why do they have to reapply now?
So if you were included in the previous roster, we're so glad you were on it. That roster and its approval sunsets this fall 2025. So the entire process starts over. So anyone who was on the roster previously, and I see some very familiar names in the chat who were on the roster previously, you have to reapply and go through the process again.
Understood. But I was on that last roster and I never heard from anyone from Maryland State Arts Council over that period. Does it work? And was my application ever reviewed?
You know, I'm so glad you asked this question. Yes, the roster does work, and I want to talk a little bit about the numbers from this previous cycle. So of the 500 plus people that applied in the previous iteration, 435 artists were included, and I put that link in the chat if you want to see what that looks like now. Of those 435 artists, 259 of those artists, so 60%, advanced to a committee review at least one time. Of those who advanced at least one time, they averaged at least 2 reviews. Some artists advanced 3, 4, up to 7 times. Some artists only advanced once, but the average was a 2 review per within those 259 artists. Of that pot of artists, 36 artists made it to the semifinalist round. The semifinalist is typically in person, where you're invited to interview with the selection committee. We only notified you if you're being reviewed if you made it to that semifinalist round. And from the 435, 8 artists were selected for commissions in the state of Maryland.
Thank you so much. So I think this kind of, we try to be transparent in this information about, you know, both the number of applicants that are on here, but also, you know, the opportunities they were reviewed for. I will say, even though, you know, we don't really have data of how much the roster is used outside of the way we use it. So we used it specifically to commission 8 artists. The next round, I would expect it to be anywhere from like 8 to 16 more opportunities that we'll hire off of this roster. At the same time, I did speak with a muralist on Friday who said, oh yeah, I have this really big project. They found me from your roster. And I was like, so happy to hear that. We don't really know when that happens, but it's great. We know some of the exchange is happening without us being aware of it. So who should apply? Nora, do you want to take this?
Sure. Okay, so the roster is open to independent and artist-led teams. We encourage studios and collectives to apply. Rather than who should apply, we're going to focus on who is eligible. So you must reside in the United States or the territories. You got to be producing original and unique work. It has to be your own work. We're looking for artists that have a unique vision in creating their work. You have to be 18 years or older. You cannot be affiliated or in a subsidiary of a larger arts organization or like a large architectural firm that has like a public art division. That circumstance is ineligible. We're looking for our independent artists, artist-led teams, studios, or collectives. And you cannot be enrolled in any kind of degree-seeking program, so high school, undergrad, graduate, etc., as of July 1st, 2025.
So if somebody is an artist who's never made public art, should they even bother to apply? I think the answer to this is more to focus on what your goals are as an artist. So you don't have to have made public art before, but the things you're going to be reviewed on are you interested in making site responsive work for a public environment? You know, if you don't want to think about the audience for your work being larger than yourself or the people who like your work just like automatically, this may be not the right fit. This is really making work that's part of a bigger, broader public environment with a group of stakeholders. Doesn't mean your work's designed by committee, but it definitely needs to respond to their kind of interesting goals. So in that sense, are you interested in working with a design team? You don't have to maybe have experience super scaling your work or producing something that you haven't made before, but you do need to work closely with a team of architects, designers, fabricators, and others to realize that work for it to be installed and successful. Are you interested in responding to themes and goals or themes and concepts that are derived from a committee of local stakeholders? Again, that idea, you know, you're the artist, but you're kind of also a conduit for the ideas or goals of others, and trying to make a piece that responds to that isn't for everyone, but it can be really rewarding if you're excited about doing that. And maybe translating your work into durable or resilient materials. We work a lot with muralists. We don't often commission work that is painted on a wall. So we might ask those muralists to have work printed onto a metal panel, translated through mosaics, or any other number of ways of translating your work. And that can apply to any kind of art form. So a lot of this work gets beyond, maybe we start with one portfolio and then we kind of work to find ways to translate or integrate your work into architectural settings. I'm going to hand it back to Nora to go over the specifics of preparing your application.
And I did see your comment in the chat. We're going to get to questions at the end of this. So I'm going to share with you what our application looks like. I am going to go ahead and put the link in the chat so you can bookmark this for later when you're applying. We are using the Submittable platform. All right, so when you click on the link, this is what our portal looks like, what our page looks like in Submittable. And once you click that, you're gonna go into the application. Now, it is the first thing you're gonna see are our guidelines. They're incredibly detailed and specific. They cover a lot of the information that we're talking about in this presentation and in more detail, so please do read through them. But it's just going to look like an eternity, and you just have to trust the process and keep scrolling until you get to the fields. Okay, if you start a draft, you can save your draft and come back to it, and this is what that portal looks like. I have had a few people reach out because they're getting a notification they don't have permission to access their application. It's just because you already started a draft and you need to go into your drafts and hit continue to finish your application. So once you've scrolled down and you've read everything, you're going to fill out the application. So we're going to start with the most basic, your contact information. And I'm filling this out as an example. I will not be on the roster as a state employee. So you're going to put in your primary address, your phone number, your email. Please make sure that the primary email account is being monitored by someone who checks email. If you were to be notified in this process, the primary email is going to receive that notification from me or Ryan. Website and social media are optional. We want to know if you're a Maryland or non-Maryland resident. That doesn't disqualify you for any projects. It's just for our tracking purposes. Okay, then you're going to submit a 1-sentence summary. And I do ask that you follow this template precisely. This is not an opportunity to demonstrate your creative writing. Just copy and paste the template and fill in the spaces. So I'm going to read mine as an example. So Nora Howell is a visual artist based in Baltimore. She creates fiber and performance-based interactive sculptures. Her typical budget range, and I can't even see it, for commission projects is between $50,000 and $150,000. That's it. That's all you got to write. All right. So then we're going to go down to the portfolio uploads. You can upload up to 8 artwork samples. That includes videos and images. So for example, if you have 8 images, you can then upload 2 videos. That makes your 10 artwork samples, 10 total. For each of the artwork samples, the metadata is required. I'm going to demonstrate that momentarily, but I want to emphasize how important it is to fill out the metadata, or what you might in the rest of the world called caption information. You want to upload artwork samples that showcase your practice, your potential. Please carefully review and select your materials to show the breadth and depth of what you do. And we recommend avoiding composite images, or to avoid trying to put 3 images into 1 picture. The panelists who are reviewing your artwork are typically looking at it on a laptop or a tablet. It's small. I know a lot of yours art is huge. So just the more things you put on the screen, the less able they are to understand the detail and the scale of your work. Okay, so this is what it looks like once you upload an image. I'm going to demonstrate. So you go choose file. I'm just going to upload a piece. And after you upload it, then all of these fields open up. That is your metadata. And not to bore you to death, I filled out one before. So, your title, the date you completed it, what it's made out of, your dimensions. Dimensions are critical because, again, we're going to be looking at your art on a screen. It does not communicate the scale, whether it's miniature or ginormous. This really helps. Where you installed it. It can be a commission work. You say I was commissioned by the University of Maryland, or it was a studio work. How much it cost. Why is this relevant? So when committees are going through your portfolio, let's just say, for example, they know they have a $300,000 budget and they love your work, but they realize that all of your work costs $1 million and above. Then they're going to know they can't get that piece for their $300,000. So they like to kind of look at your work about what is the range of how much this size costs, so they know what they can afford if they were to hire you. You can go in and put something about the artwork. It doesn't need to be long. It does give context. And then what your role is. So we understand that most public art teams and collaboratives are multifaceted. If you're the lead artist, let us know. If you were the fabricator, the installer, the engineer, that needs to be recorded. It's okay to be a co-artist, a collaborator. We understand that public art is inherently collaborative, but the committees really want to know, okay, if I hire you, is this what your work tends to look like? If you're the fabricator, you need to disclose that. You don't necessarily design it, but you're showing how well you can build something. All right, so every time you add a piece, you can fill out all of that information. Artworks that don't have that, what we call metadata, filled out, your application would be ineligible and it would not advance for panel review. So as soon as you upload all that, you can go and just add your next image. The videos are in a separate field. If you want to add a video, the same process, go here, choose file. You can add your videos. We accept most video files. I would keep videos short, less than 2 minutes. 30 seconds is probably best. Again, think about the committee. They're going to be reviewing 40 to 60 applications. They're not going to spend 10 minutes on one video. Okay. So think about the music. It's if they're like going through applications, maybe they don't want to listen to something like super jarring as they're going through. Okay. So again, for your videos, you're going to fill out the title, all the same information, keep on scrolling. Then you're going to fill out your bio statement. So the bio is really letting the committee know what's your experience. So if you've done public art before, let them know. If you're interested in public art, maybe you're a painter, you're interested in getting into public art, you have a lot of experience working with clients, it'd be a good thing to say here, right? So whatever you have experience doing, this is your moment to explain it. So for myself, I just keep a Google Doc of my application materials. I have like my go-to bio, my go-to artist statement, and I'm just a copy and paster and dump it in since I have that stuff ready to go. Your artist statement, this does not need to be fancy or elaborate or hard to write. What we want to know is what you make and why you make it. You're not necessarily, the committee members are artists, they are administrators, they're professors, they are state police, they are district court. So there's a wide range of people reading this. So I would recommend be clear and straightforward, okay? What you make, why you make it. If you're someone who's interested in getting into public art for the first time, you can talk about why, what materials you might be interested in working in. So again, I'm just gonna pop over to my Google Doc and get my artist statement. And this is like my general statement, and I tend to tweak depending on what I'm applying for. Okay, so new to the application this year is if you have a minimum budget, let us know. So for example, if we have a small budget project, let's say we have a project for 75,000, but you're like, I can't make anything for under 250,000, we aren't going to advance you through that process. We're not going to waste your time. So let us know if you have a minimum budget. That being said, if something changes, you can always decline the invitation to participate in the semifinalists. You know, if we send you an email and that budget is too small, you can say thanks, but no thanks. All right, community engagement. So this is something that we want to know how you work with people. And we leave this really open. Community engagement looks different for every artist, every community. But give us an example. You know, have you done an artist talk before? Have you done workshops? Have you like shown up at the county fair and blown bubbles with the children to give you ideas? Like, just let us know how you engage and collaborate with people. If you have an example, it's great. Again, this doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be stressful to write. Let us know how you prefer and like to engage with the community. All right. And then these are some of the ways that our state partners have asked artists to show up or to do things with their respective communities. And we're talking a wide range here from state police barracks, courthouses, laboratories, university campuses. So let us know which of these things that you have actually used in the past. This is not something you're going to be scored on. It's just helping us understand more about who you are as an artist. And then you have to do your electronic signature, agree to our terms of use, and you can click on that to read. I do want to point out that part of the terms of use is that if you're accepted to the roster, your work will be up on submittable platform and viewable to the public. So that link I shared earlier, if you're accepted, your portfolio would be publicly accessible through that link. You can save the draft. Once you open a draft, you're able to save it as much as you need. And then once you're finished, you can go ahead and hit submit, and you should receive a confirmation email from us. And we'll say it many times a day, applications must be submitted by June 30th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. All right, Ryan, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Nora. Let me bring the screen back up. Thanks for all that great information. Just want to reiterate a few important points you touched on. So the artwork that is included in your application must be your own. It can be a collaborative process, but you must give credit to any partners or projects. If someone comes to us later and says, actually we produced that, or this person made that while they were an employee of our studio, any kind of dispute like that, it could put your position on the roster in jeopardy. Acceptance to the roster does not guarantee you will receive a project, but it will guarantee that your project is included on the roster. And you can only submit one application. So if you were part of a studio or a bigger collaborative, you can't apply as yourself and the studio. You have to pick one way to participate in the roster. How will your application be reviewed? So this is not a project, of course, where you're competing. It's not an opportunity where you're competing for a specific project. So we're not reviewing your application against the parameters of any budget or specific scenario. You just ask that you meet 3 of the 4 criteria that are listed here. Artist communicates a unique vision or perspective. The artist demonstrates an authentic relationship to the subject matter. Artist shows ability to create site-responsive work, engaging a site and/or community. And the artist demonstrates a command of materials or skills and techniques. Your application will be reviewed by at least 2 independent panelists, as well as our staff, against these 4 criteria. You have to receive an average of 3 of the 4 in order to advance. Just a final reminder that the application, 2 other webinars are coming up that are going to be a live portfolio review. So these are an opportunity where Nora will go over with a select group of people. We're anticipating maybe up to 10 per session, but it's not exact science. This is all kind of a new process we're trying out, but she will be able to call on up to 10 people to review your draft application and give some feedback. So it might be a great chance to say, I see you're overloading this slide with lots of images. I might suggest making one slide of the full piece and the second slide of a detail shot, but that kind of feedback in real time. And even if we don't discuss your application, it might be tips or pointers that you could use in your own review. So if you'd like to sign up for that, feel free to use this. This barcode goes to the registration, right, Nora?
Yeah, that's to the Eventbrite registration where you can participate and watch the portfolio reviews. If you want your application to be considered for feedback, please submit a request on the Google link I just put in the chat. I'll be picking 10 from that list.
And the final reminder that the deadline to apply is June 30th. So we have over a month from today, and it hopefully does not take that long. If you have, if you're used to applying to things, if you've applied to projects recently in the past, you probably have your group of 10 images and some form of these written statements ready to go. But take the time you need. And if you are really stumped on an aspect, feel free to reach out to us. We can try to give you a little feedback. And also keep in mind that, again, our roster is really similar to what other rosters look like. So once you get your material ready for us, apply to Sacramento, apply to Phoenix, apply to Washington State, get out there and work all over the country as much as you can. We are now happy to open up to you all for questions. And I know there's a lot in the chat, but if you want to, feel free to raise your hand or unmute. We will go down the chat and then we will call on people who've raised their hand as well.
Okay, Ryan, I'm going to read out some questions for you from the chat and try to go up to the first one.
Great.
There's two or three questions around this same topic. So would it be okay to include a virtual installation image of my painting to give a sense of scale?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I think if you were, like I'll use an example of like maybe parallel to this, like if you were a sculptor and you had been designing a project that's not installed yet, it would be absolutely okay to use a rendering of that piece in its design phase as one of your work samples. And I think that would be fine for a painting as well. I don't think I would encourage you to do more than like, I don't think there's an exact number, but I wouldn't do a portfolio of all artificial renderings. I would note in the metadata, this is a rendering to show what my work could look like at scale, as well as show a painting of it maybe at its actual size.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Ryan, there's two other questions. Someone asked about a proposal they submitted that wasn't commissioned, but could they use that in their portfolio?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I
I
think
would
some, yeah, go ahead.
just, clarify, whether it was, if it's underway or, a piece that you proposed that didn't get built. But I would just be clear in the information.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. If applying as a team leader, should I submit portfolio resumes from the other team members?
Yeah, why don't you answer that? What is the requirements in the application for resume? Is it a page limit?
There's no resume requirement. We're just asking for a bio. So I would recommend that you think about authorship. So at the end of the day, when you install the work, whose name or names or what name is going to go on the plaque? If it's just you as the artist, I wouldn't bother putting other people's names. We understand that you have teams, you hire subcontractors or employees. If you're like multiple names are going to go on, or you have a collective name like Lou Studio that represents multiple artists, then I would address those members' experience in your bio. And Andrew, are there any follow-up questions to that? You feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. All right.
I would add to that, just to tag on there about the portfolio. If you have not produced work together in the past, the approach would be like divided up. Maybe it's 2 images from each team member. But I will say it's really hard for our review committees to know the final product from a team that doesn't have a track record of working together. It's a little hard to visualize what that outcome would be.
Yeah.
Let's jump to Breon with her hand up, and then we'll go back to the questions in the chat. Go ahead, Breon.
Brian, if you want to come up mute, yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I have a partner and we are a team. So we've been combining our CVs somehow. I forget how we do it. Somehow we do it. We kind of divide it up half and half. So I assume that would be acceptable because we do work as a team. We both collaborate. We both design. We're true collaborators. So we just figure it out. Does that fit into that?
Yeah, I would just go ahead.
It does. I will ask a follow-up question. When you apply for opportunities, what name or names do you use on your submission?
Okay. Yeah, it's like a team. I can't, we make it up as we go.
Okay. I will
Depending
say
on our mood.
Yeah, okay. I had an instance twice in this past year with applicants who are applying as a team, but they didn't register. They did not apply under a team name.
Okay.
And thought it was just one artist until it was time for them to come in person. It was like, oh, it's actually 2. So really think through, again, when you apply, how you want to be called later. Like if I was going to email you as a semifinalist team and invite you and I introduce you to the committee, what name am I going to introduce you as? That name is going to follow you through the whole process up into the plaque.
Okay. But it would be okay to submit a combined, if we get our eggs in one basket, we could submit a kind of a combined resume because our mixed images are mixed together also.
Right.
Okay.
So in that instance, like let's say you have 10 images, 3 are the lead artists of artist A and 3 are artist B, and then you have 3 that are like pure collaboration. There's no, you can't say this is one person or another. Just put that in the metadata.
Put that in there. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that. We've definitely done that. So, okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Good question.
Yeah, Joshua has a good question about possibility of opening the roster to students who will graduate during the next 3 years. Unfortunately, Joshua, all of our programs are restricted that anybody seeking a degree granting education program are ineligible to receive support. But as soon as you are graduated, you would be eligible for our grant programs. And then, yeah, feel free to contact us about the roster. I wouldn't suggest you apply now if you're in a program, but there's a good chance we might work towards opening this up to have an interim period for people to either update their portfolios or receive new applications, but none of that's been finalized yet.
And I will follow up for Lindsay. If you're not in the school yet, go ahead and put your name in the hat. And then once you get in graduate school, you can let us know and we can remove you. Especially since you don't have like an ETA for that. All right. I'm just skimming questions here.
Is it beneficial to submit a slide for a prior piece that wasn't selected? I think we kind of addressed that. Yes,
Yeah.
Go ahead and do that.
So I'm jumping down the pages question. Is there a way to find like applications and opportunities outside of Maryland that are eligible for Maryland artists? Can you suggest websites or platforms to search for opportunities?
Yeah, there's a number. I'll put a few in the chat. I'll say them like publicartist.org, CodaWorks, Public Art Exchange are a few. I also think like the Arlington Arts Council has a good opportunities list. The For Culture, which is like an organization on the West Coast outside of Seattle, advertises a good resource list. But a lot of groups have these. I will put a number of them in the chat so you can look at them. While I bring that up, can you go to the next question?
Yeah. If we don't have experience in public art yet, will there be any support with logistical aspects of creating large scale work? Are you going to punt that one to me?
Sure. Nora will help you make whatever you want.
Yeah, we do our best. So as the State Arts Council public art team, we are your liaison from being commissioned through installation, and we assist you. We do currently are working with a few artists right now. This is their first time translating 2D work into durable public art materials. So we are here to support. That being said, we can't do everything, but we will let you know what we are able to do and help you with. There's lots of resources in addition to us, like working with the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts to get contracting set up and working with fabricators. So if you are, let's say you're a painter and you're interested in translating your work to Mosaic, you can literally hire someone to do the Mosaic component for you. You don't have to know how to do Mosaic. You can work with someone else to do that. Okay, I think we've covered one more. If you helped install a mural, but the design was created by the lead artist, can you still include it as part of your portfolio as long as you state your role in the project?
Yeah.
Like you're an artist assistant.
Yeah. You as long as you're honest about that role. I think it's a little bit hard for I'll say the selection committees we're working with in our team wants to show people what your skills are and what you're producing. So that's a great way to demonstrate that you have experience, but it's not a great way to demonstrate what the work would be if they hired you for something. So it's a little bit of a challenge. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for this. If I have a public art project it's a commission right now, it'll be installed in 2026. Well, it's very different work from what I've already done. Will I be able to update my portfolio at that time or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, thanks for asking, Lauren. We will open it up and you can make any updates you want. It's best that technically from our end, the best way to do that is just to send us an email and say, hey, can I update my portfolio on the roster? And it's easy.
Yeah. But in the meantime, Lauren, I would submit any like digital renderings you have of the work. You just put in there that it's a rendering. There's another question in the chat. Would it be acceptable to submit images of a previous commission work if reproduction is possible? So any of the work we're commissioning has to be original new work, but we want to see the past work that you've done. We want to see, that's how artists get selected. It's based off of their portfolio, proof of work they have completed.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions they want to ask? I will add, I put in a list of outlets that you might want to look at, but we could email this list out to folks who registered for this if that's helpful. Just so that'll come with links, I guess.
And there's another question. Go ahead, Brian.
Brian, did you have another question?
Okay, Brian, if you're
Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought I connected myself. Just wanted to see what you've gone on in the past, what commissioners you've had and who have received commissions. Is that possible to see that?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'll go back to this earlier slide that has the names of everybody from recently. So Nnamdi Okonkwo was from Atlanta area. David Hess is based in Baltimore
Yeah, no,
County.
David. Yeah.
Aurora Robson is based out of New York State. Ayokunle Odoleye is based out of Stone Mountain, Georgia. Wesley Clark is a painter out of Hyattsville in Maryland. Benjamin Ball Studios is from California, and Stacia Goodman is from Minnesota. On top of this, I don't know, we have about 6 or 8 other works that are listed on our website.
Okay.
in
But
the
we
chat.
haven't updated these yet. Oh, thanks.
Oh.
Yeah, a little out of date, but the older ones are on the website.
Okay. Just
And
was
I-
curious.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I want to do another plug for if you are submitting an application, have a draft or have already submitted, and you would like feedback to improve your application,
Yes.
please submit a request in the Google Drive, and I will pick 10.
Oh, so once we have it up, then we can request feedback? Is that what you're saying?
Right, it can be a draft or a submitted application, but you need to have something in submittable for me to look at.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's great. It's always good to have feedback.
And I put
Okay.
the link in the chat. My apologies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we can end and give you all 5 minutes of your day back. Thank you all for being here. We so appreciate your interest, and we are here. So